All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Ashton Wingate. I'm Senior Manager of Digital Archives at the Legal Defense Fund at TMI. I'm going to be your host for the evening. Is that all right with everybody? All right. It is my privilege to welcome you here to the TMI 10th anniversary celebration here at NYU. We really appreciate their hospitality in hosting us. Tonight, we are marking 10 years of using research, data, and history to strengthen the Legal Defense Fund's fight for racial justice. The Institute was founded to make sure our advocacy is grounded in evidence that the experiences of Black communities are captured, studied, and remembered as part of our nation's ongoing story. As someone who works in the archives every day, I see how the past continues to inform the present and how ideas that are once written in memos or court briefs find their way into our story and our history. That history and our data are both forms of power, tools that shape the future. And so to begin this evening, we have a short video to show you about how all that work comes to life.
For over 85 years, the Legal Defense Fund has utilized more than legal arguments. LDF has leveraged data, research, and social science in the fight for racial justice. In the 1940s, Kenneth and Mamie Clark conducted pioneering research on the effects of segregation on Black children. Their famous doll test revealed the profound harm of racial bias, showing that children internalized societal prejudices and developed negative self-perceptions. These findings became a cornerstone in the landmark Brown versus Board of Education case, providing the courts with irrefutable evidence that segregation undermined equity in education. The power of that visual was immediate and undeniable. Through simple yet compelling imagery, the Clarks translated complex social realities into evidence that words alone could not convey. Today, the Thurgood Marshall Institute continues this legacy, using data-driven research to expose inequities and inform advocacy across education, housing, policing, and public safety. Through comprehensive reports, TMI transforms statistics into visual narratives that illuminate systemic injustices and guide social change. And beyond learning loss, TMI examines how the COVID-19 pandemic disproportionately impacted Black students. Data visualizations revealed declining test scores, increased absenteeism, and rising mental health challenges, illustrating the urgency for targeted interventions. These graphs turn abstract numbers into a story of real children, classrooms, and communities in need. The report, Black Educators as Essential Workers, highlights the critical role of Black teachers in shaping educational equity. Bar charts, infographics, and trend lines show both the disparities in representation and the direct effect on student achievement, making a compelling case for systemic policy changes. In Project 2025, maps and charts illuminate the potential effects of policy proposal on Black communities. These visualizations make clear the stakes of legislative and administrative decisions, showing patterns that words alone cannot fully convey. The Bad Housing Blues exposes systemic housing discrimination. Maps and charts illustrate how Black families face barriers to accessing housing vouchers, perpetuating cycles of inequity and limiting economic mobility. Truth in Crime Statistics challenges misleading narratives by presenting visual data that debunks myths about crime rates and policing. Line graphs and bar charts reveal the discrepancies between perception and reality, empowering communities and policymakers with clarity and insight. Through the police funding database and studies on the racial wealth gap, TMI uses interactive maps, charts, and tables to expose inequities in funding and wealth distribution. These visuals reveal systemic patterns that call for urgent action, translating complex policy realities into actionable insights. From the pioneering work of Kenneth and Mamie Clark to today's cutting-edge research, TMI demonstrates that social science and data visualization are not just tools, they are instruments of justice. These compelling visuals bring numbers to life, making inequities tangible and undeniable. They inform legal strategies, drive public awareness, and mobilize communities to act. TMI's commitment to evidence-based advocacy proves that social science research and data analysis can have a significant impact on real, tangible challenges that communities face. By transforming data into a visual story, TMI empowers society to recognize injustice, confront it, and create better outcomes for all Americans. The Thurgood Marshall Institute, 10 years of research, archives, and advocacy.
Thank you. So that's what we're here to celebrate tonight, 10 years of research, archives, and advocacy. And of course, the Institute's impact is inseparable from the larger story of the Legal Defense Fund. And that's a story built on decades of courage, vision, and persistence. Our next short video draws from LDF's Recollection, a project by our archives department that preserves the voices and legacies of those who made this work possible.
Now, more than ever, our history needs to be a call to action, a reminder of the impact individuals can have, and a window to those who walked before us. Recollection, Civil Rights Legal Archive, is that call to action. Whether you're a student, educator, researcher, or lifelong learner, this site is designed to offer you unparalleled access to some of the most influential legal cases, oral histories, and civil rights records. Thousands of documents are fully digitized for easy access. You can zoom in, download, and interact with materials like never before. Visit ldfrecollection.org and discover your connection to the living history of the civil rights movement.
Thank you. So you can go right now, pull your phone out, ldfrecollection. I'm just, now to officially open tonight's program, please join me in welcoming Todd Cox, Associate Director Counsel of the Legal Defense Fund.
Thank you, Ashton, and good evening, everyone. There we go. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Todd Cox. As Ashton said, I'm one of the Associate Director Counsels here at the Legal Defense Fund, and it is my honor to be in community with all of you this evening to commemorate this special anniversary and to honor the important and pioneering work undertaken in the social justice field. Before I begin, I want to again thank our hosts at the New York University School of Law for having us here this evening. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to also thank LDF President and Director Counsel Janai Nelson for her storied leadership. And I want to give a tremendous thanks to Director Karla McKanders and the entire staff of TMI for organizing and planning this evening's event. I also want to recognize LDF board member, co-chair Angela Vallat. There you are. There are a lot of TMI and LDF staff members here today joining us, almost too many to name. But I do want to ask everyone who has worked for TMI since its founding to give us a wave. All right, thank you. We have a robust slate of programming ahead of us this evening, including a discussion between Janai, Carla, Janel Byrd-Chichester, who helped develop the vision for TMI, and Dr. Richard Rothstein, a TMI senior fellow emeritus. Later in the evening, we will honor LDF's own Donna Gloeckner with a Distinguished Service Award for her 5 decades of service to LDF. 5 decades. Congratulations, Donna. And tonight we will present the inaugural Doctors Kenneth and Mamie Clark Activism and Scholarship Award to Dr. Carla Hayden, the 14th Librarian of Congress. Congratulations, Dr. Hayden. That award presentation is extra special because tonight we have the honor of being joined by the members of the Clark family, their granddaughters, Natalie Thompson and Andrea Smith, and cousin Kendall Agret. Thank you so much for being here with us to celebrate Dr. Hayden and the indelible contribution of Drs. Clark, whose doll test, as we saw in the film, helped change the course of history. While we're celebrating TMI's contributions to the field of social science this evening, we're really celebrating our community. The work of TMI and its distinguished fellows, our partners in research, and our generous supporters has helped not only inform, but transform the landscape of civil rights and our collective understanding of the challenges facing our communities and the work it will take to overcome them once and for all. For the past decade, the social science researchers and archivists who have served at the Thurgood Marshall Institute have been the stewards of LDF's multi-decade legacy of using social science, research, and public education materials to inform and advance racial justice legal advocacy. In the decades to come, I am confident that this work will only grow in its importance and reach. As we saw in the video that played before I came up here, this community, this institute, is special, and its scholarship has the power to help reshape the future of our advocacy and this country. Now, more than ever, it is important that robust, well-rounded research is available to all. It is imperative that we counter efforts to diminish the truth of our past and erase the lived experience of marginalized people. So while we celebrate tonight, we must be committed to upholding those values, to shedding light where darkness festers, and to supporting one another as we collectively confront forces that seek to pull us backwards. Thank you all so much again for being here. It is now my pleasure to introduce one of our special guests and the moderator for tonight's panel, Dr. Alondra Nelson. Dr. Nelson is a leading scholar at the intersection of science, technology, and social inequality. She is the Harold F. Linder Professor at the Institute for Advanced Study, where she leads the Science, Technology, and Social Values Lab, examining how emerging technologies shape justice and democracy. Dr. Nelson served as Deputy Assistant to President Biden and Acting Director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, where she led the development of the blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights and advanced national policy to make federally funded research openly accessible. Her influential work and leadership has earned her recognition from Nature, Time 100, and numerous academic and civic institutions. I'd like now to invite Dr. Alondra Nelson and our esteemed panelists to the stage to begin the next part of our program. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Todd, for that introduction. Congratulations to TMI on this extraordinary anniversary. And thank you to Dr. Carla Hayden. If you'll allow me to have just a personal bit. When I published my first book called Body and Soul, came out in 2011, I was desperately looking for some place to talk about this book, about the Black Panthers Party's health activism, which hadn't been written before in long form. And the first person, not the only, but the first person to take my call and offer me a place to speak about my book was Carla Hayden, then the librarian of the Pratt Library in Baltimore. And ever since then, I've been devoted to her and she's been devoted to me. I was so delighted to, when she was as a Librarian of Congress, asked me to serve on a Scholars Council for the Kluge Center there at the library. And then when she left, I left, and publicly so, because you know, these didn't happen as it should have. So Carla, thank you for all that you are and all that you've done, and just thank you. And this honor is so richly deserved. I can't wait to celebrate you. So let's get started with the panel. Let me introduce folks who don't need any introduction to this audience with so many TMI community members and alumni, but let's give them their propers, huh? Janai Nelson is President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the nation's premier civil rights law organization fighting for racial justice and equality. LDF was founded in 1940 by the legendary civil rights lawyer and the nation's first Black Supreme Court Justice, Thurgood Marshall, and became a separate organization from the NAACP in 1957. Nelson formerly served as Associate Director Counsel and as a member of LDF's litigation and policy teams. She's also served as interim director of LDF's TMI, which I didn't know, and in various other leadership capacities at LDF. Prior to joining LDF, she was Associate Dean for Faculty Scholarship and Associate Director of the Ronald H. Brown Center for Civil Rights and Economic Development at the St. John's University College School of Law, where she was also a full professor of law and served on the law school's senior leadership team. Janel Byrd-Chichester is General Counsel of the National Fair Housing Alliance. With over 3 decades of experience as a civil rights litigator and an authority on public policy, Janel served as the former director of the Thurgood Marshall Institute. She also previously served as LDF Assistant Counsel, during which time she litigated school desegregation, affirmative action in higher education, and employment discrimination cases. As a civil rights litigator and public policy advocate, she has used social science research extensively on a broad array of civil rights issues, including fair housing and lending, consumer protection, employment discrimination, and more. Karla McKanders is director of the Thurgood Marshall Institute and has extensive experience teaching critical race theory and immigration law at the Vanderbilt University School of Law. She was notably the associate director of Vanderbilt's clinical program, where she served as the founding director of the Immigration Practice Clinic. Her work has also encompassed appearances before the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and federal courts of appeals. Her research has been widely published, including in the Georgia State Law Review and the Harvard Journal on Racial and Ethnic Justice, among other prominent venues. She clerked for the Honorable Damon J. Keith on the U.S. Court of Appeals, 6th Circuit, and Detroit. And joining us virtually, we're delighted to have Richard Rothstein with us. He's a distinguished fellow of the Economic Policy Institute and a senior fellow emeritus of the TMI. He is author of a book that I'm sure all of us know, The Color of Law, A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregated America, which recovers a forgotten history of how federal, state, and local policy explicitly segregated metropolitan areas nationwide. He is also the author of numerous other articles and books, including Class in Schools, Using Social, Economic, and Educational Reform to Close the Black-White Achievement Gap, and Grading Education, Getting Accountability Right. So I think across these extraordinary biographies, you see many themes: racial justice, social science, the importance of research, and I think this will give shape to some of our conversation. But Janai, let's go back first. Let's talk about Justice Marshall, who passed away in 1993, but his legacy lives on in so much of the work that you do at LDF in many ways. How does TMI in particular, do you think, honor the justice's legacy?
Thank you for that question, and good evening, everyone. It is wonderful to see you all and to be here to celebrate the Thurgood Marshall Institute's decennial anniversary. You know, when we founded the Thurgood Marshall Institute, we were giving life to an idea that had been germinating for a long time. When I was a baby lawyer at LDF, people talked about this idea that Janel Byrd had. And more than everything's always more than one person, but Janel's name was most closely associated with this. And we wanted to create the Institute because the role of social science has been so critical to our legal work. And people know about the Dahl test. And we're so honored to have the family of the Clarks here. So thank you for being with us tonight. I'm actually going to give a very small personal story. The Dahl test actually inspired me to create a line of dolls that I did in a sort of past life, because I wanted to make sure every child had a doll that looked like them. So there was a line of multicultural dolls that came out of the Dahl test. So there's always been a connection that I have felt to this study. And we wanted to create the Thurgood Marshall Institute because, you know, it is critical to have research animate your legal work and to be able to educate at the same time that you're advocating. So we felt that was the best way to honor Thurgood and his visionary leadership, his incredible acumen, and his multidisciplinary approach to civil rights and racial justice work. So that is why the Thurgood Marshall Institute, came into being, and we gave life to this idea. And now it has flourished into all that you saw on the screen, an archive, podcasts, an incredible oral history. I mean, it's really flourished in ways that are almost unimaginable. But it does give voice to his extraordinary, visionary legal strategy that always was holistic and always drew upon different disciplines.
Thank you for that. So, Janel, you've already been called out as an important pillar of this work. Obviously it was important for Brown v. Board, and social science research was really centrally there as the video that kicked us off got started. What would you say about the founding and about how that case helped to inspire you, and what else inspired you as you were helping to stand up TMI?
Well, I want to say, the staff. I don't take responsibility or credit.
So stipulated.
I should say for.
But can you tell us how you had a vision for?
But I want to say, when Justice Marshall passed, the staff actually had a meeting, and this was the outcome of that meeting: was a decision to create the Thurgood Marshall Institute, and it touched on LDF. Has, from its founding, I'll say, had the core of this, and the thought that we could fight injustice with facts and truth. And so social science research was always important, and public education about it. So if you look at the name, and this is one of the things that we always held up, was a NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. We felt the Thurgood Marshall Institute really brought life to that educational component. But it wasn't new at that time, I'll say, in terms of the work that's done in this type of work. Obviously, Brown and many of the cases used experts, and we used data and facts to support our cases. But also, Jack Greenberg hired Gene Fairfax in the mid-'60s. And Gene led the Division of Legal Information and Community Service. And Gene did service in the South. She did research reports, including reports that helped support the war on poverty and inspire the Lyndon Johnson's administration to do that work and support that work. She and Phyllis McClure did a report on the Elementary Education and Secondary Act to support Title I education. That inspired and helped support work in that area. Reports like, documenting the hostility to desegregation. It's not the distance, it's the niggers. That's the name of the report. And Jean did that work along with, the research, but also she and Phyllis, they traveled to the South, and they would connect up with the plaintiffs that we would work with to bring some of the critical litigation. So you see all of that history, and Jean was at LDF from 1965 until 1984. Unfortunately, my tenure did not overlap with hers, but she was a giant. And so this work, everybody from the day I got there, people wanted Jean, wanted Jean's work, and they wanted to continue this tradition of quality research, writing, advocacy that supports the overall work of the Legal Defense Fund. The other aspect I'll say that's to how this fits in is the litigators all realize that litigation is just one tool. And so we, very much wanted to have the ability to be multidisciplinary, to use other tools in order to accomplish these critical goals. And so the Thurgood Marshall Institute was the way to embrace all that and bring it together with the excellence that's LDF's tradition in order to promote the mission of LDF.
And here we are 10 years later in that formal, you laid out that longer legacy, but in the formal establishment of TMI. So Carla, I want to come to you to ask you about that 10-year arc. Since TMI was launched in 2025, how would you say researchers, archivists, like our colleague Ashton here, have harnessed data and storytelling to advance racial justice? And how do you think TMI has changed its storytelling strategies over that 10-year arc as well?
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. What's unique about TMI is that we ground our research in the lived experiences of people. We just don't do data. We make sure that we are telling the stories of people who are impacted, adversely impacted by the law. And so whether it's through our Project 2025 report, documenting how that policy will have an impact on Black communities, or Democracy Defended, which started with Janel, and we have a report coming out which will document how voter suppression laws impacted Black communities throughout the South. So we just don't do the data. We are telling the lived experiences of people. And then on the other side, we have the archives team who puts the memory behind the data. And they are also engaging in a form of storytelling through their archival objects that they're putting on the website. One of the strategies that we use is that we make the data very simple. As you see from the video, we do a lot of data visualizations. We want the stories to be accessible to a wide variety of people. We want our archives website, recollection, and our publications to be teaching tools and tools for legislative advocacy. And in this age where we have lots of information coming at us, we try to meet people where they are. And so our podcast is conversational. We have quick learning guides. We have one-pagers to simplify, legal concepts. We use glossaries. So we're really trying to meet people where we are. So they'll pick up our report or go to the website and they'll move from that's interesting to doing something or taking an action.
Richard, we're going to come to you next, but I wanted to, while I have you, Carla, ask you to brag a little bit on this Project 2025 report. So you kind of, I overheard some good news happening here that folks might be able to help with.
Yes, today our comms team announced to us that we have been nominated for the Anthem Award for our Project 2025 report. And we're very excited. We want everyone to vote. That's the next step in the stage of the process. So if you at the reception, you'll see flyers around where you can scan a QR code and pass it around to your colleagues, and also pass the report around too. Again, we really wanted to make that report accessible to multiple members of the community so that they could know what the impact of Project 2025 would be across the board in education, in the attack on disparate impact. And we worked across interdepartmentally to make sure that that report was accessible. So we're very excited that it's been recognized, and we hope that you'll go online and vote for us.
Congrats on that, and everyone's got homework. Yeah. So Richard, 2 questions for you. You are an accomplished scholar. What drew you to TMI, and what do you think you would say you'd most accomplish during your tenure there? And how has that research, do you think, been used to advance racial advocacy?
Well, thank you. And it's really an honor to be with this wonderful panel of my good friends, Janai, Janel, Carla. Thank you. Back in the last century, and in the early years of this century, I was a journalist writing about education. And as such, I read the Supreme Court decision in 2007, Parents Involved, in which Chief Justice John Roberts issued a decision prohibiting the school districts of Louisville and Seattle from implementing a conscious school desegregation plan because he said the segregation in Louisville and Seattle was de facto because of private bigotry and private businesses discriminating without any government involvement. And I read that and I knew a few things that made that sound ridiculous. I remember reading a book about Louisville, Kentucky, in which there was an all-white suburb in which a very courageous white homeowner bought a straw purchase for an African-American friend who was not allowed to live in any suburban community. And when the African-American friend moved in, an angry mob surrounded the home, protected by the police. And when the riot was all over, the white homeowner was tried, convicted, and sentenced to 15 years in prison for instigating a riot for subversion by selling a home in a white neighborhood to a black family. So I said to myself, this doesn't sound much to me like de facto segregation. The police, the courts, the criminal justice system, these are state actors. This is a 14th Amendment violation. And I began to wonder if there was something more to this story that Chief Justice John Roberts didn't understand. And so I began in 2007 putting aside some of my education policy work to research the history of residential segregation. And I wasn't writing anything about it, but I'd done a lot of research by 2014 when Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson. And I was able, because of all the research I'd done, publish an article immediately after that about how Ferguson became a segregated black neighborhood. And of course, it was all government action that had done it. Well, that article I wrote attracted Cheryl and Eifel's attention. We began to correspond about it. I was writing a book at that time that you mentioned, hadn't been published yet. I sent Cheryl in the draft. She made a number of helpful comments, and I made revisions based on her insights. And ultimately, she asked me to be the first fellow at the Thurgood Marshall Institute to continue this work. I thought that the work fit right into the Thurgood Marshall Institute's mission of using facts to motivate action. What I found important about the theory I was developing is that so long as we thought that racial segregation was an accident, we might as well think it can only unhappen by accident. But once we understood it was created by explicit government policy, well, we could more easily understand that government policy can also undo it if we have the will and the motivation to do so. So I thought it was a very optimistic book. It gave us a way forward that we didn't have before, so long as we thought that this all was accidental. Well, I did join the Thurgood Marshall Institute in 2016. I spent the next couple of years promoting the idea that we had an unconstitutional and unlawful system of racial segregation. I traveled all over the country on behalf of TMI, promoting this idea. During that period, The Color of Law was published, and it got an enormous reception because it opened people's eyes to the fact that change is possible and required under the Constitution and our laws.
Now, Richard, was there anything that was surprising to you about the reception of The Color of Law?
Oh, sure. My publisher ran 5,000 copies. That was his expectation of it, and mine wasn't much greater than that. It's now well over 1 million. The most common reaction I got, which was very, very gratifying to me, was things like, how come I never learned this in high school? Why was I so ignorant of this? And many, many more people asked, what can we do about it now that we know that we have an obligation to do about it? I co-authored with my daughter a subsequent book explaining what people can do about it. But I was enormously surprised and gratified by its reception. It's a very, I'd say, understated book, as they said in the television program that I used to watch when I was young. Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. It didn't preach, and people appreciated getting these facts that they thought they should have gotten when they were in high school.
Thank you for that. So, Janai, let me come back to you. And we still have the specter of Justice Marshall here with us. What do you think he would say about this moment, about the work of...
I shudder at the thought.
Turning in his grave, right? Yeah. About the work of racial justice advocacy in this moment. And how are you thinking about the work of racial justice advocacy in this post-Project 2025 moment?
Well, we are very much still in the thick of Project 2025. And I am so glad that we did that report, because I don't think people really appreciate it. And now they're coming to appreciate it more. What was broadcast to all of us in advance. And we knew immediately that the impact was going to fall on Black communities in the harshest way possible. And I would say that I will not channel Justice Marshall. He left us with many words to think about on our own. And, Janelle mentioned that this conversation about the Thurgood Marshall Institute came about right after his passing in 1993. I was a first-year law student in 1993, had no idea that this, trajectory was ahead of me. But I think back to some of the speeches he's given. And in 1992, he received the Liberty Medal. And as part of that speech, and I commend it to everyone to listen to it in full, he said, "We must dissent from indifference. We must dissent from apathy. We must dissent from hatred and mistrust." And I think that's what he would say in this moment, because I was just speaking to someone earlier and saying we cannot normalize this. And I say that to the staff all the time. We cannot accept this as normal. Of course, they're not going to do that. But it's so important that we remain in an oppositional stance to what is an erosion of civil rights, what is an attack on human rights. And so the way I think about it, the way we've talked about it a lot at LDF from the day after the election, is that we must defend our wins, we must disrupt this attack, and we must continue to dream forward. That's our 3D vision at LDF. That's how we are approaching this moment in every category of work.
Defend, dream. What's the first one again?
Defend, disrupt, and dream. Because we need that multifaceted approach to deal with this moment. And so I hope he would be pleased with how we are looking at things, and that we are carrying forward his very sober words, and we are continuing to dissent. I should be 4 Ds, right? Dissent as well.
We'll add to that one. So Janelle, we're in this moment where truth is facts. We've all been, it's been very normalized in this room. Facts, truth, social science, evidence. But we are living in a moment when all of that is under attack. And so what do you think are the challenges and opportunities that are embedded in defending the importance of data and science and truth and facts and evidence in the way that it guides collective decision-making and government, NGOs, civil society broadly?
Well, the challenges are huge, and as you know, when I think of one of the biggest challenges is what's changed with the technology and AI, and how the world is not the world we grew up in, where there was CBS, ABC, and NBC, and you could just, or maybe CNN for some of you who are a little younger than I am, but now it's TikTok and all of the social media, and it plus AI, which is huge. And so the challenge really is meeting the moment, I think, because it's turned everything upside down. And how do we reach? I mean, one of the things that I remember saying to Cheryl Lynn when I was at LDF with the Thurgood Marshall Institute was, how do we reach the young people? It is, I think many of the civil rights organizations are looking at how to understand AI, how to understand all the new technology, and all of the threats that it holds. So while I want to commend LDF and all of us for the great work we have done, and one aside on your 2025 report, I was in a meeting the other day where they were saying, somebody should have written a report about 2025. And my boss said the Legal Defense Fund did. So that's an aside.
Thank you, Lisa
but
Rice.
yes, but that work is critical. For me, the challenge is how do we move from where we are? Yeah. So now we've got the message, and LDF has a great comms team. They were fabulous when I was there, for sure, and they were able to, produce those graphs and all of that. But how do we convert this information into information that is now usable and actually in the hands of potential voters, young people, the public, so that they understand what's happening? I think that is the biggest challenge we're facing right now.
So Carla, I might come to you because you're right in the middle of doing exactly what Janel said. I mean, how are you thinking about data integrity, misinformation, the sort of erosion of ground truth in the work that you all are doing?
It's a big challenge because there's so much information coming at all of us, and there's a mistrust with that information. So when we look at what the Thurgood Marshall Institute is producing and on our archives recollection website, we do have to pay attention to how that data might be scraped from AI and it being misquoted or misinterpreted. We try to counter that by working with our comms team and our organizing team to make sure that, again, we're putting things in plain language, that we have data visualizations that are, undeniably clear in what we're saying so that that information cannot be misused. But we're still going to have to work on, especially with our recollection website, we try to balance, disclosing the information, making all of our archives public, and then guarding against insecurity or disclosing sensitive information. And we have a wonderful archives council who helps us to navigate that territory. But it is very new that someone can pull something from our website and it can be scraped and brought up in an AI chat conversation, and it might be misused. So we're still working on how do we handle the data that we're producing through our reports and on our website to make sure that it isn't misused.
And it's a formidable challenge. I mean, the work of civil rights is in the organization itself, even in your practices, protecting people's privacy, ensuring that your desire to have things open and accessible to people isn't exploited. So I tip my hat to you for thinking about this, but I know it's really difficult. So we're going to have Q questions soon, but I want to just ask one final question to everyone, and I'll go to Richard first. Given the threats of this current administration to our rights and to progress that has been made in the struggle for civil rights, what do you think is the role that all of us can play, regular people, everyday people can play in the fight to reclaim American history and the fight to ensure civil rights? However you want to take that, Richard, but we'll start with you.
Sure. I think the highest priority is to create interracial local groups that can meet together, plan together, and begin to take direct action to stand in the gears of the fascist dictatorship that we now have. We've had enormous, massive demonstrations across the country. I certainly think those are great. They're a good idea, but they don't actually stop anything. We need local groups that can begin at a local level to stop things. At first, they'll be put in great danger. The more people do it, the less danger each one will have, because although the dictator can pick off one by one, he can't pick off everybody at once. I'll give you one example. I'm sure you all saw in the New York Times just a day or so ago, the way even California is trying to restrict the way in which real history is taught in our schools so that people don't learn the facts they need to know about this unconstitutional system of racial inequality that we have. We need courageous teachers who will not only teach the truth in defiance of that law, but who will take the risk of advertising that they're doing so. They can be the John Scopes of 2025. John Scopes was the Tennessee teacher who dared to teach about evolution at a time when it was banned, and to brag about it. There are many, many actions that people can take locally to begin to, as I say, throw sand in the gears of this dictatorship. They have to begin to do it by local organizing, preferably biracial groups, multi-ethnic groups that bring people together around the common interest that they have in restoring a democratic society.
Thank you for that, Richard. Janai.
I think that I'm going to pick up on a thread that Janel mentioned, and that is reaching out to young people and to lift up something that TMI produced under Carla's leadership, and that is a curriculum that teaches middle school and high school students about Brown versus Board of Education. we have the power, we have the knowledge, we have the information, we have the power to create our own curricula, to create our own content, and to disseminate it. And we piloted this in a school district in Philadelphia. And we're looking to extend that to other school jurisdictions. That's a direct intervention that puts history in the hands of the next generation and teaches them what's possible. And even when we did our Project 2025 report, we created a much smaller pamphlet that our organizers would get out to different communities. So we're making sure that we distill the information and bring it directly to people, and especially to young people, to empower them. And the last thing I'll say is, everyone should be doing something. If you are not doing something differently than you were on January 19th of this year, if you have not stopped buying somewhere, if you have not turned up and out somewhere, then you're doing something wrong. Like, nothing is normal right now, and everyone has a role they can play. Speaking up in your place of work, joining an organization, supporting an organization, whatever it is, everyone should have an act of defiance that they can lift up for their personal intervention in this moment. And only you know exactly what that is, but there should be something that we're all doing.
Hear, hear. Janelle?
Yeah, I agree. I think I just have to underscore your point. You know, everyone needs to be doing something. I would tell my little neighborhood group, if it's just a yard sign,
Yes, something.
make sure people know where you stand. I guess I would. It's my thoughts on this are in line with some of Richard's points and Janai's points, in the sense that, you know, it's easy to despair in these times, and there's a lot of fear, you know, justifiable fear on the part of many people. And I thought about and asked myself, what, you know, am I ready to go to jail? What can I do that's different from what I was doing before? And I do think that the best way to support the communities that are under attack, the communities that are most disadvantaged and being harmed by what's going on, and we know that the African American community in particular is a target, is to strengthen us. And I think that we strengthen ourselves by making sure that we are as well educated as we can be. And so efforts like the curriculum projects, the history projects, and to support teachers, I think are really, really critical, because the stronger we are individually, the more we can stand up to this attack.
I'm going to encourage everyone to go to our website and read our reports, and to look at recollection, look at our oral histories, but don't just stop with yourself. Take it to your niece and nephew. Take that little nugget that you get from the archives website and post it, tweet it, talk it, TikTok it, or whatever it is, so that it just doesn't stay with you, that it is passed along to our communities. Because the work that the archives team does and the researchers is an act of love, and it's an act of service to our community. And we want people to take it and pass it on, especially in this era of mis and disinformation, that you can pass something along, you can challenge someone. We always say at Thurgood Marshall that we have the receipts. We're producing the receipts for you. So you can come to our resources and get the receipts to educate our community.
And if I could just add, Carla, what we know that helps to defend against misinformation and disinformation is if you're passed information from a trusted source, right? So if someone, we know this from barbershops and beauty shops and public health information, but that TikTok from somebody who's in your network, that, you know, garden sign that's from somebody in your community, those are the little things that make a really big difference in the space of misinformation and trying to get back to any kind of ground truth. So we now have, I know you have questions for this sterling group of folks. We have time, about 10 minutes for questions for any of them. And we've got a microphone being passed here. 5 minutes. I stand corrected. My schedule says we can go to 7:35, but you guys changed the run of show on me.
Mine is not as much a question. Well, it is a question, but I want to first say that this has been outstanding. We came in from Washington just to hear you guys, and I think you've done a great job, a wonderful job, and I like the work that you're doing. But all the things you mentioned that can be done, I totally agree with. But the one thing you didn't mention is that those who can give, that the money to support groups like you is critical. Because even in these days, and we were finding, in the foundation that I run, that a lot of the corporations now are making excuses about how they can't give money to support our children going to college, our children, just helping them with their reading and math skills. So I think to encourage us to also, we need to go in our pocket and then also financially support the organizations like your own going forward.
Amen. I promise you, I did not pay him to do this. But thank you from the bottom of my heart. And it actually does allow me to say one thing, and that is to support the Thurgood Marshall Institute for the next 10 years, we need $37 million. I don't expect anyone in this room to write a check for that amount, but every little drop helps. And that supports the research, that supports the continuing archiving of oral histories and getting people before they pass and to tell their stories so that we have them permanently captured so that generations, it can never be erased if we control it, right, at LDF. So I think that that is so important. I really appreciate you underscoring that. And then just wanted to let everyone know that all of this wonderfulness does come at a price. It does, it does. So thank you for your support. Other questions?
Good evening. My question is, what can be done to elevate, enhance, engage students I work at a public college. What can be done to get them involved just in, not my short lifetime, but my lifetime? It always seems that really important movements start at a college, at a university, right? I don't know if that's necessarily the case. That's just how I see it. What can be done to help the kids understand what went on, what is going on, what needs to be going on, and, if you will, really like their level of responsibility to do something. You know, I know we can't make anybody do anything, but I think that in many instances, kids don't know that as kids, they really have a lot of power on a college campus to educate the neighborhood in which the college exists, and to bring their friends along and to, you know, step into the world of possibility and do something different. So what can be done to help them to have a better understanding of what I constitute as a level of responsibility as a student?
I have an example from the Thurgood Marshall Institute. Yes. So one of the things that we did during the 2020 election, and I will give the young folks on my team credit for this, was they said, we want to go to college campuses during the election. And what they did was they connected with SNCC elders, and they had them talk about their activism and brought them into meetings with the college students. And I mean, sometimes we fronted some lunch and some food and stuff. That brought folks to meetings. We bought pizza or whatever, but we actually then had, during the 2020 election, as you guys know, post George Floyd, a lot of money came in to support our voting rights work. And so our voting rights defender and prepare to vote projects run from the Thurgood Marshall Institute literally had big groups of students. We had buses that went to help register people to vote or to help people distribute information because we produced palm cards with all the voting information. So we actually had a really good response, and it was interesting how the connection with the elders who were active during the civil rights movement really struck a chord with the students. So that's one example of something that we've done that connected directly with students, and we got a lot of students involved in different campuses in the South where we were working during the election.
And the Thurgood Marshall Institute has two really strong programs. The archives team just won the Society of American Archivists Innovator Award for their internship program in creating the next pipeline of civil rights archivists. And so that's one thing they can apply for our internship that runs year-round. And then the research team has a fellowship for undergraduate students during the summertime where they work under the supervision of our social science researchers so they can come in and they can see directly how social science is used for advocacy. Also, our brilliant team, Kimberly Barzola, is coming up with strategies to work directly with college campuses. She has put together a essay contest where students will use archival objects from our website so they can learn more deeply about civil rights history. The archives team is engaging or attempting to engage influencers so that we can connect our material and the content that we're using with younger audiences. And I know that the archives team also will be speaking at the American Historian Conference. Is that already passed? Yes, so they spoke at that conference so that they can work with professors so that historians are learning about the archival materials that are available on our website, and they're integrating that into the curriculum on college campuses so that students can be engaged and they can learn and see themselves in the civil rights history.
Can I add one little thing? Carla mentioned influencers. And one of the things that our team did in 2020 was they created something called voting rights ambassadors. And so those college students signed up to be voting rights ambassadors and influencers. And so these creative, kind of approaches, I think really can help bring students in.
So we're almost out of time, but I want to just hold a little space because I'm mindful that we're at a university and there's probably students in the room. So I want to offer you the floor if there's a student here, somebody who's younger than some of us on the stage and the camera, who would like to respond to this teacher's question about what, how young people should be thinking about this moment or what they can be doing in this moment. Yes, thank you. I'll give the mic to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm a first-year law student at Columbia Law School, and so I thank you all for presenting the topics that you did because they feel particularly pertinent to me in the space that I am in right now. I was also a college student during the 2020 election, and so participated and got to bear witness to voting ambassadors, and I can say that they do have a tangible impact on reaching students at the ground level. I think continuing to make sure that this generation is connected to the previous ones is of the utmost importance. To know that the work is ongoing, right? That it wasn't, the photos might be in black and white, right? But then we're not connected, we're not too far from that. And I think that's really what can hopefully reach students and even those younger than me. And so continuing to empower those, to remind them that they are, right, existing in a legacy that is alive and well and must be continued is important. So thank you all for thinking about us, and please do continue to think about us.
Thank you so much. So we are now going to move to the award portion of the evening, the awards ceremony. But I want to thank this extraordinary group of panelists: Richard Rothstein, Janai Nelson, Janel Byrd, and Karla McKanders. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you again. And can we get another round of applause for the panelists and the amazing Dr. Nelson for her excellent moderation. That was really lovely. You all, I'm sure, if you know LDF, you also know about Sherilyn Eiffel. I wanted to be certain to say that she was so disappointed that she could not be here tonight. You'll hear from her a little bit later. She did send a quick video, but I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that the vision of the Thurgood Marshall Institute came to fruition under her leadership 10 years ago. And I know that she is deeply proud of that effort and all that it has become. So I am going to begin the conversation about Dr. Hayden. As you've heard tonight, in its first 10 years, the Thurgood Marshall Institute has planted and watered and nurtured seeds that have bloomed into groundbreaking social science research, equitable policy recommendations, innovative and strategic legal advocacy, and cutting-edge technology, including the award-winning Recollection, a civil rights legal archive. So thank you to all the folks you heard from tonight and many others in this room for helping the Thurgood Marshall Institute establish itself as one of the nation's leading authorities at the intersection of social science and racial justice. As we look ahead, we must be exceedingly vigilant in protecting the stories and the scholarship and the source materials that tell our story and inform our future. And we have a plan to fortify this project for the next 10 years. I mentioned the price tag of fortifying that project. And I now will take the hint to continue to remind people of that. But when history is itself under attack, we must dig our heels in and commit to fervent truth-telling. Our first honoree tonight is the living embodiment of that conviction. So it is my distinct honor to present the inaugural Doctors Kenneth and Mamie Clark LDF Activism in Scholarship Award, named in honor of the psychologists whose social science research shifted this country's understanding of race and informed the landmark victory of Brown versus Board of Education. And we get to share this inaugural award with a pioneering librarian, scholar, and advocate whose career has profoundly shaped public knowledge and culture, the 14th Librarian of Congress, Dr. Carla Hayden. So for those who may not know about her esteemed background, let me just share some of it with you. As the first woman and first person of color to serve as Librarian of Congress, Dr. Hayden transformed the nation's most storied repository into a dynamic resource for public engagement, historical scholarship, and social research. Dr. Hayden built bridges between the library sciences and social sciences, expanding access to collections that illuminate the lived experiences of historically marginalized communities and enabling access to critical materials related to Black, Latino, and Indigenous histories. Under her leadership, the Library of Congress bolstered the function of civil rights in social science and scholarship. Among her illustrious accomplishments, she helped propel partnership between the Library of Congress and the Thurgood Marshall Institute's archives to new heights, including the digitization and online publication of 80,000 items from LDF's inception through the 1960s. Because of her dedication, these rich primary source materials are available widely to the public for the first time. Dr. Hayden long believed in libraries as engines of civic life, social inclusion, and historical awareness, a commitment that is reflected in actions she has taken throughout her career to ensure public libraries could remain safe havens for communities, even amid unrest. Through her scholarly work, she has helped inform her profession's approach to children's librarianship, multicultural and inclusive programming, library outreach, and advocacy. Dr. Carla Hayden fully reflects TMI's belief in knowledge serving racial justice, its ability to dismantle structural racism, and the critical nature of access to knowledge for communities of color and social justice organizations like LDF. In honoring Dr. Hayden, we recognize a leader whose work transcends traditional boundaries, a scholar of information and social access, a steward of historical memory, and an activist for democracy through knowledge. Her career embodies the idea that history, culture, and social progress flourish when information is free, inclusive, and within reach for all. So, Dr. Hayden, on behalf of LDF's board and staff, please join us in accepting the Doctors Kenneth and Mamie Clark LDF Activism and Scholarship Award.
This is truly, truly wonderful. And I really need the glasses. It means so much to me, personally and professionally. And I want to thank Janai and the other Carla, as I say, and Sherilyn Eiffel, and the kind, kind words of Alondra, who thought we'd end up together so many years later. Because to be recognized by the Thurgood Marshall Institute is profoundly meaningful. And it is even more of an honor to receive it in the name of the Doctors Clark. Their collection is one of the collections at the Library of Congress that I was so proud to help archive and shepherd and make sure that people knew about. And to get an activism award. I know librarians have been called feisty fighters for freedom. So here we are, because this award captures the essence of that depiction. And so this recognition is not mine alone. It belongs to the librarians and library workers before me and everywhere today who open their doors each day with the same quiet conviction that free, accessible information changes lives. In every corner of our world, on bustling city streets, in the small rural towns, in schools and universities, in research libraries and archives, community branches, librarians are connecting people with information and knowledge, equipping them to fully participate in civic life, and helping them see themselves in the story of our nation. As you also know, in many places today, libraries and librarians and archivists are also under attack. Yet, our response is steady and hopeful. We meet fear with facts. Archives are evidence. We meet anger with listening. We meet exclusion with welcome. And across the country, our librarians and archivists share the same core values. So I sincerely appreciate this wonderful honor, and for TMI's leadership in committing to justice and equity, because we will continue to work together to ensure that libraries remain free, welcoming, and trustworthy. And as Dr. Clark said, in accepting an award with a phenomenal librarian who's being celebrated at the 100th anniversary of the Schomburg, Jean Blackwell Houston. And she noted at the award ceremony that Dr. Clark said, accepting an award for past behavior is a commitment to the future. And I thank you for giving me this award and giving me inspiration. On that picture, and I said to Janai, I wish my mom was here right now. Don't worry, she's 94 and she knows exactly where I am today. And she wrote out some notes in her beautiful cursive writing. Now, and I also have to tell on her, that looks like a loving glance. Actually, it was because in holding Lincoln's Bible, and she was holding it for the swearing in by the Chief Justice and all of these people, and I was on her about this. This is Abraham Lincoln's Bible. Now, his family's from Illinois, so this was so significant. And I was telling her there's going to be curators and security guards, and they're going to give it to you. They're going to have white gloves on. You're going to do this. Oh, I was on her. So we get up there, and she's holding Lincoln's Bible and doing everything. And I started to take the oath, and I flubbed. Or I don't know if it was so help me God or whatever it was, but I flubbed. And that's that look like, oh. Really? Okay. I said, people don't realize what they see that. But she wrote out, she called me right before I came here tonight. She said, I know I wrote that out, but I'm not sure if you should tell them about this because this is a very distinguished group. And you didn't become a lawyer, you became a librarian. She still remembers that. But I think you would appreciate this because she said in 1954, when the decision was rendered regarding segregation of public schools, we were living in Tallahassee, Florida, at Florida A&M. Dad was teaching there. And my age is public knowledge. I was 2 years old. And she said in January 1955, newly elected Governor Leroy Collins stated that it would not happen in Florida. And she heard that, and she decided immediately I would not have my child in Florida. And so we moved to New York, Queens. And many years later, though, we returned to Tallahassee for a graduation. And we had this fancy dinner at the exclusive Governor's Club. And my mother paused in front of Leroy Jenkins' portrait and introduced her daughter, Dr. Carla Hayden, the first woman and the first African-American, and had her picture taken with them. But that memory for her of what it felt like as a mother to have to hear those words was a lived experience that has been an inspiration for me. And so I thank you, and we will make sure that she gets the video and sees this. But I can't tell you how much this means to me at this time. Thank you so much.
I'm sure your mama is beaming now. I now would like to invite our two lead archivists to the podium to do something really, really special. And I know that they particularly want to give this honor. So I'm going to step aside. But before I do, it is not every day that you get to celebrate someone who has been at an institution for nearly 50 years. In January, it will be 50 years that Donna Gloeckner has served LDF in multiple capacities, has grown us from a dusty set of boxes and a library that, you know, she loved and nurtured and took care of, to the amazing space that we have now, the incredible digital archives, the wonderful team that you've helped to train. And I just want to say how grateful I am that you are part of the LDF family, how much we owe to your service, and to thank you for spending your career with us. Ashton and Kara.
Thank you. Janai, of course, said it better than I could ever say it, but I'm going to read my remarks anyway. I'm truly honored to celebrate someone who has given not just her time, but her heart and her brilliance to the Legal Defense Fund for 50 years. LDF's Director of Archives, Donna Gloeckner. Donna began her journey in 1976. That was the year of America's bicentennial. As her time with us comes to a close, we now approach the nation's 250th anniversary. That time span alone is remarkable. Few things are more patriotic than dedicating your life to protecting the promise of the Constitution and preserving the history of the fight to realize that promise for future generations. Throughout her extraordinary career, Donna has served under every director council except for Thurgood Marshall himself. She has held roles across nearly every department, stepping in whenever she was needed, wherever she was needed to be. Always with grace, resourcefulness, optimism, kindness, and an endless sense of curiosity. And that last quality made her one of the most knowledgeable people in this organization. As a native New Yorker from Staten Island and a former school teacher, Donna has been teaching all of us for decades. Through her patience and her example and her deep understanding of what it means to serve something greater than yourself. For those of us in the archives, she has been our leader and guide, reminding us that the smallest details often hold the biggest truths, and that preserving the record of struggle and triumph is in itself an act of justice. Donna, personally, I want to thank you for 50 years of dedication to the Legal Defense Fund and to the fight for civil rights and racial justice. Your legacy will forever be a part of LDF's story. And now I will hand it over to my colleague and archives manager, Kayla Jenkins, to share her remarks.
Sorry, Donna, we're going to keep piling it on. So I've had the honor and the pleasure of working with Donna for the past 8, almost 9 years, building this archives program. And when we talk about people that really embody the culture of LDF and of TMI, Donna is the first person that comes to mind. And that's not just because of her incredible institutional knowledge for how long she's been here, or for her commitment to the Thurgood Marshall Standard of Excellence, which I thought was a Donna phrase, but I heard Janai say it too. But it's, I think, especially in the way she treats everyone she encounters with such care and respect. I saw this like even on our way out the door tonight. We had to stop and make sure we said goodnight to the person working at the door. So like whether you're Donna's direct report, or you're a renowned civil rights lawyer who's preparing to argue before the Supreme Court, or you're the janitor emptying the trash in her office when she's working too late on a Friday, Donna will always meet you in your full humanity and believe in you, and I think that's really special, and that just like creates an environment where we are able to innovate and to thrive and to create this award-winning archival program. Yeah, Donna is unfailingly generous with her knowledge, her time, and with her listening ear. Okay, I'm going to pivot. In the early days of the archives department and of TMI, Donna was fond of saying that we're a startup, and she's always approached our work that way, with curiosity, as Ashton mentioned, and with creativity and with an open mind. And she really cultivates innovation by encouraging pilot projects. We always use that word, pilot. We're always piloting something. And she gives us the space to think expansively about how to preserve and share the important records and the stories that we steward. And when conditions or expectations change, Donna adapts rather than getting stuck, because that's the LDF way. So like in the 80s to early 90s, she was tasked with bringing the first computers to LDF. And she made it happen. I think she was director of IT for a little bit after that. Yeah, it's one of her many titles. I also just learned that she, when we didn't have a director of development early on, she filled that seat for a few months and did grant writing. And then when TMI was established and she was asked to turn her file room into a professional archives program, Donna found a way. So cheers to you, Donna, and thank you for all you've done for LDF and for TMI, and we will miss you.
Well, thank you all. It's lovely to see everybody here tonight for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is my remarks, which will be very brief. Wow. I didn't see that before. Anyway, yeah, I've been with LDF for a very long time, and it's been an amazing career, if you will, but it was a kind of an unusual career in the sense that I was hired as a librarian, and we kind of morphed into all these great projects and opportunities to learn things that I had no idea about, but to actually sort of get behind LDF's LDF as an institution, such a great institution, and to be able to be a part of that, no matter what I was doing, you know, even if it was, you know, as we say, we had a few odd, I kind of like that IT gig, though. That was kind of fun. But, you know, there was a lot of opportunity to learn. There was a lot of, obviously, there's a lot of sharing at LDF. Everybody at LDF is a sharer. So if you have a problem, you have an issue, you need an answer, LDF has somebody that will help you. And it's interesting to see how that works, what that looks like in an office setting, for instance. And it's really very inspiring, to say the least. So, in any event, I loved my job. It was always interesting, always different. It lasted a little bit longer, but I'm not done yet. So, but there are still things that we need. You know, we're not done with our recollections. We're not done with our projects, and there's only. We just have such an opportunity to do so much with what we have, and if we can share that with the public, then we should be doing that, and we are. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud of my team, all of you who are here, back here, everybody. And as a team, we are remarkably cohesive in our goals and our objectives. It makes it so much easier. I don't have to persuade anybody. Everybody is right there. So it's been remarkable and quite unexpected career for me. I was a high school teacher for a while, and then Ed Koch broke the bank, so we all lost our jobs, and that was when I basically became interested in librarianship. And I just have to interrupt my story just to say, you have no idea how thrilling it is for me to see Carla Hayden in the same room. It's like, whoa, how did that happen? So I'd love to have a conversation. If you have a few minutes, I'm your girl. So in any event, I really appreciate LDF, and I appreciate the opportunity that LDF gave me and supported me, and some of the really kind of odd ideas we had going along. But ultimately, if you take a look at recollection and you take a look at the things that we are doing now and that we are planning to do going forward, it's an inspiration to everybody. And we should all be pleased for that. So.
So what you just witnessed doesn't happen often. It's hard to get Donna to get up here and speak in front of a crowd of people. So she continues to make history. We are quickly running out of time, so we're gonna move on here. We have a very special message to share. Few people have championed the vision and impact of the Thurgood Marshall Institute more than the 7th President Director Counsel of the Legal Defense Fund, Sherilyn Eiffel. We're honored to share a special message from her as we celebrate TMI's 10th anniversary.
Good morning, everyone. Congratulations on the 10th anniversary of the Thurgood Marshall Institute. I can't believe it's been 10 years since we were able to stand up this think tank within LDF. When I returned to lead LDF in 2013, I was very clear, even in my 2012 interviews with the board, that I wanted to revive and refine an idea that had been developed by that amazing LDF attorney, Janel Byrd. She had worked a decade before on sketching out the Thurgood Marshall Institute, a think tank that would exist within LDF. But I had now spent some time away from the organization and had been in academia for 20 years. And that helped refine my thinking about what this institute could and should be within LDF. I wanted a place where we could develop reports and expert analysis, where we could contribute to the factual ecosystem that surrounds the work that we do. I wanted to develop a place where LDF staff and attorneys could learn, where we could bring in experts and sit in a room and learn elements of the work that we do that we haven't had an opportunity to do as a deep dive, where we could sit in a room and not have to be the smartest person in the room, but where we could ask questions of those who understand a field better than we. This was the genesis of the idea of creating labs, labs where LDF attorneys and staff could learn and experiment. I also wanted to ensure that lawyers at LDF had an opportunity to take sabbaticals from litigation and be able to do field work, research, and write on elements of the work that they're doing that their litigation demands would not allow them to explore. That every LDF attorney is doing such amazing work, but also is exposed to important aspects of injustice that they may want to further explore and want to write about. I also wanted the ability for us to do campaigns, to launch campaigns that would pull together from all of the different issue areas of LDF to move an issue in a time-bound way with intense resources and with intense intellectual rigor and diversity. So all of these things were part of the thinking of wanting to create this institute within LDF. We didn't have any money to do it. But I talked about it from the very beginning, and with every donor I met, I talked about the Institute and with anyone who would listen. And I talked about it so passionately and so incessantly that finally a donor who was the leader of a foundation that no longer exists gave us $5 million to get started, and we were off to the races. It has been a journey. It's been my pride and joy to see the consequential reports that have been produced within the Institute. There are few days I have enjoyed more than when I have been able to participate in Thurgood Marshall Institute labs and sit in a room and learn, and just have been thrilled by the quality of the campaigns we were able to launch, including our policing reform campaign and our voting rights defense project, which were incredibly consequential, did amazing work, and truly made a difference. Ironically, the Institute really took off when the person who had first had the idea, Janel Byrd, came back to lead the Institute. And then we really were cooking with grease, as they say. And the Thurgood Marshall Institute now is an essential and vital part of LDF. I just want to congratulate every single person, every staff member, every fellow, every director, everyone who has worked within and around the Institute. I want to congratulate all of the directors. Carla, you're doing great work, and I'm happy to be of help in any way that I can. And I'm grateful to Janel Byrd for her amazing contributions to solidifying the Institute in some very trying years. And I want to thank you, Janai, for your commitment to continuing the Thurgood Marshall Institute, to ensuring that it is well-resourced, well-staffed, and doing the kind of work that makes LDF better. Thank you all so much, and enjoy your day.
So, as we continue this evening of reflection and celebration, it's now my pleasure to welcome back to the podium, or back to the stage, Director, Thurgood Marshall Institute, Karla McKanders.
I will keep this brief because I know I'm standing between you and the reception. I wanted to first thank Ashton. Ashton called me the other day and he said, I'm not calling about the anniversary. So I know he's happy that you're able to put on a great event and that really honors the Thurgood Marshall Institute. All of the working group that are in the room, I know you spent week after week planning. Thank you for your endless efforts. I want to move to thank the staff of the Thurgood Marshall Institute because you are the heartbeat of our organization. If I could ask all current members of the Institute, staff members, to stand. I feel so honored to be able to work with a team of brilliant scholars, and coming on board, I've learned so much about the archives and what you do on a daily basis to preserve our history. I want to acknowledge any of the fellows that we have in the room, our past fellows. That program allows us to partner with scholars, with lawyers to produce cutting-edge research. So as I leave you tonight, I just wanted to thank you all for coming, and please get to know our staff. They are behind the work that we do, and they're the reason that we're in this room today, and we're at 10 years, and for the next 10 years, we'll be building on the great foundation that this staff has created. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Sam.
All right, now I'm standing between you and the reception, so I'm going to try to be very brief. But I do want to thank a few people. So first of all, can we give another round of applause to Dr. Hayden and Donna Gloeckner? Thank you both for your incredible contributions to our democracy. Dr. Hayden, it's an honor to be in the same space as you, and it was especially powerful to hear your mother's remarks, so thank you very much for sharing that. Donna, I just personally, I can't imagine going to work without you. You are irreplaceable, and we're going to do our best to continue to make you proud. Can we also give another round of applause to our amazing panelists, Dr. Nelson, Richard Rothstein, and 3 amazing current and former LDF leaders, of course, our President and Director Counsel, Janai Nelson, and our TMI current director, Karla McKanders, and her predecessor, Janel Byrd-Chichester, all of whom are just extraordinary. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. For me, the panel discussion was stirring. It was incredibly informative. I also do want to echo Carla's thank you to Ashton for amazing emceeing. You were great, and I feel like this is something that you don't get a chance to do as much as I wish you did, because you were really made the night special. So this really was a much needed evening tonight, and really a reminder of the power of integrated advocacy. As folks noted during the panel discussion in particular, it's exactly the kind of meeting that the Thurgood Marshall Institute was designed to help foster. It's so special to get a glimpse of the shape that scholarly convenings like this can take when the right people are brought together to unpack complex problems in a difficult moment where none of us individually has the answers, but we're asking the tough questions and we're working together to chart a path forward. And for me personally, I was previously the director of litigation, and we have current LDF director of litigation, Chris Kevin, in the room. And I know I speak for both of us when I say I cannot overstate how critical the work of the Thurgood Marshall Institute and our archives team has been in strengthening our legal advocacy. The TMI team, our archives team, ensure that LDF remains at the forefront of scholarship, of research, of historical memory with respect to issues of racial justice and civil rights, all of which are independently so important, but also that we are doing it in a strategic way. We talk about TMI being the strategic research arm of the organization with an emphasis on the word strategy. I loved how Carla put it when she was talking about how what we're doing is we're encouraging people to go from that's interesting to what action can I take and how can I take it? And that's true whether our work is reaching members of the public, reaching policymakers, reaching judges in our briefs. And I think that's really something that is so special about the Institute and such an honor for all of us who get to work with everyone at TMI. So thank you to everyone. So, and thank you finally to all of you. It was wonderful to see that there's students here who are sort of helping us think about passing the baton to the next generation of civil rights scholars and research and lawyers, and especially in this time. I just think that's so important for all of us. So our program is coming to a close, but the party is not ending here. So please join us for the reception where we can mix, mingle, and continue our celebration. Thank you, everyone.